Hi everyone, welcome back to Choosing Turtles. My name's Imogen. In today's video, I'm teaching you how to deal with difficult situations, specifically like socially or in any situation which involves other people. So if you're not already subscribed, be sure to do that, give this video a thumbs up, follow me on Instagram, and let's get started. Now, I apologise that I look like I'm kind of melting, but it is really warm here. It has been so warm all week. So we're just gonna ignore that and get on with the video. So you're in a difficult situation. It might be you've got probably got some kind of conflict with someone in your life, be that in a professional environment, academic, personal, maybe family, whatever it is, you are in a sort of tricky situation and you need to deal with it. So the first thing, obviously, and it's so obvious that like I have to just get it out of the way at the start of the video, communication, okay? Because sometimes difficult situations can be resolved by communicating. You would not believe the number of times I have seen people be in situations which would literally be solved if they just talk to each other honestly. And I obviously will be the first to admit that I am not always the best at communicating, and there have been some situations where I should have communicated better and that would have solved my problems. So this frustration is partly at myself, like my past self being like, why didn't you communicate? Like, can you just communicate better? Can you just say what you're thinking? So positive and problem-solving communication in any situation can diffuse a lot of things. I think a lot of the time when we have conflict, when we have a really difficult situation, it can stem from a misunderstanding, okay? So that's kind of the first thing to establish is, can this situation be solved by communication? Because if it can, you've just saved yourself so much trouble, okay, genuinely. If you can communicate openly and honestly and seek to solve the problem with the other person and frame it in terms of you and the other person versus the problem, not you fighting the other person, if that makes sense, okay? So if you can just see if communication, open, healthy, honest communication can resolve the situation, diffuse the situation, then yeah, you will save yourself a lot of trouble. And that is why this is the first thing I suggested to try, because like the majority of cases can be solved by this one weird trick. Anyway, yes, communication is the first kind of like port of call. However, if you have communicated and the situation has not been resolved, maybe the other person's being difficult, maybe you genuinely have a difference of opinion, maybe they're being an asshole, figure out whether this is a connection you can afford to lose, okay? Because sometimes we have to walk away from situations, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next point, but figure out whether this is a connection that you can afford to lose. Because if you are in a difficult situation and it's really like getting to you, it's really like, I don't know, eating you alive, it's really, really messing with you, okay? Sometimes it's just not worth it to keep that connection. And I'm not telling you to like ditch people at the first sign of trouble, obviously. That's why I suggested communication first. But once you've kind of exhausted that avenue of inquiry, as it were, you need to actually sit down and really have a think about, can I afford to lose this connection? Because, do I really need this person in my life? Do I really want this person in my life, okay? Is this person absolutely essential to my life? So figure out whether this is a connection you can afford to lose. And sometimes it might hurt to let go of a connection, but it might hurt more to keep it, okay? So you've got to do that kind of like cost-benefit analysis, as it were, and figure out whether this is a connection you can afford to lose. Number 3, you are still in the difficult situation. God, that sucks. Okay, but don't escalate unless you can see an out. What do I mean by this? I mean, if you are in a situation that you can't easily escape, do not make it worse for yourself, okay? Now, obviously, I am all for setting boundaries and I am all for standing up for yourself, but if all that is going to do is make your life currently suck more, don't do that. That sounds obvious, but if you escalate the situation and you can't remove yourself from it, I promise you are going to feel worse and you are going to make this difficult situation difficulter, okay? That is a word now, all right? So don't escalate unless you can see an out. However, on the bright side, if you can see an out, feel free to go absolutely batshit crazy, okay? Not batshit crazy, but like, if you can see an out, speak your mind, okay? I'll give you an example. I've been estranged from my mother for 2 years, many reasons. I've made other videos about it, so you can go and check those out. But I've been estranged from my mother for 2 years, and when we had the final conversation that ultimately led to the estrangement, or to me saying, we're now estranged, I am not going to see you again, I knew that I had like an out, right? So I had my student house that I was living in, and I knew that I could move back there. And so I just completely spoke my mind. I said everything that I wanted to say. I had no filter. I absolutely gave it straight. Like, I literally said everything. I was completely honest. And yeah, I was angry, and I yelled, and I got yelled at, and it was a real interpersonal conflict that was resolved by being estranged and leaving. But the only reason that I escalated that situation and that I allowed myself to be that honest and that unfiltered was because I knew I could just fucking leave. And I was gonna fucking leave. Okay, so don't escalate unless you can see an out. But if you can see an out, fucking go for it. Like, I endorse this. The next point, kind of relevant, take some space, okay? If you're in a difficult situation and you can't necessarily get out of it completely, take some space. If you can get out of it completely, great, you have solved your difficult situation. But take some space. Sometimes all you need is like time to like cool off, back off, and just think about it. Because sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, you can really get very like narrow-minded and really over-focus on the problem. And sometimes that leads you to ignore potential solutions, okay? So take some space if you possibly can. Sorry, it's really warm here. The next tip that I have for you, and this is something that everyone should do, get things in writing, okay? Don't let anyone gaslight you. You know what the truth is, okay? And if you can get things in writing, you have proof, okay? And then if the other person later on tries to say, oh, I never said that, you could be like, I have a fucking email, okay? Or whatever it is. So get things in writing as much as you possibly can, and keep that paper trail. Keep the paper trail. Keep a record of the things that were said and the things that were done. And that way, if anyone ever tries to gaslight you, you can shut that down immediately, okay? Get things in writing. Do not let anyone start with that gaslighting. The next thing that I want you to do in difficult situations is set boundaries with consequences. Now, this is kind of related to the whole can you see an out and don't escalate unless you can see an out situation. But once you are able to like remove yourself from the situation, set those boundaries, okay? Say, look, if you continue to treat me this way, I will leave. And, or, you know, if you continue to stalk me, I will get a restraining order. Or if you continue to do this or this or this. Look, so I'm not saying that like you have to go ballistic, but like as we get towards the end of the video, I'm suggesting more and more escalated solutions, because if you're still watching at this point, then you've got a hell of a problem, haven't you? Because like if you didn't, it probably would have been solved by this point and you would have clicked off the video and gone, yep, that's good, we're done. So yeah, if we're at this stage, then we are getting into the big solutions here. But set boundaries with consequences, okay? You have to follow through for the sake of your own like dignity. You have to follow through. And so don't set boundaries you can't follow through on, but once you know you can follow through, follow the fuck through, okay? Because you are worth more and you deserve better. And if you set boundaries and then don't follow through on them, people are not going to respect you. They're going to think that you're all bark and no bite. So you need to bite, okay? You need to bite. Set boundaries, enforce the consequences if those boundaries are not respected. And finally, a fun little tip at the end, which I thought would be valuable to leave you with. Don't be afraid to eventually tell people to fuck off, okay? Practice walking away. Don't let people mistreat you. You deserve better than staying in a situation where people don't value you and they don't mistreat you and they walk all over your boundaries and they just generally treat you like shit. Don't be afraid to walk away, okay? You lose nothing by getting rid of someone who's being a jerk from your life, okay? Get them out of your life, okay? They are not your friends. They do not have your best interests at heart. I don't care how, you know, maybe they treated you well in the past, but they're being a jerk right now. And if you've communicated with them and said, hey, you're being a jerk, can you stop it? Or you've set boundaries with them and say, look, these are my boundaries, can you respect them? Or, like, you've really talked it out and they're still being a jerk. That person is not your friend. they can absolutely go, okay? So do not be afraid to tell people to fuck off. Like, my life vastly improved when I learned that I can tell people to fuck off, and it's great. It really is great. I'm gonna go on a rant here, but like, I need to stop, okay, I need to stop. But like, it is great. Don't be afraid to eventually tell people to fuck off. Like, it's absolutely fine. It's not rude. Like, what's rude is them treating you in a way that necessitates that reaction. They literally started it, okay? So don't be afraid to eventually tell people to fuck off. It's completely fine. Practice walking away. Don't let people mistreat you. You are worth more than that. That is how to deal with difficult situations. I hope this helped. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you are not already subscribed, be sure to do that. Give this video a thumbs up. Follow me on Instagram and go set your boundaries. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.